I'm here to tell you about my project, Closing Convo. Closing Convo at its core is slowing down fashion. If you're not familiar with fast fashion, it's the term used to describe the mass production of cheap and trendy clothing at a super rapid scale. There is a high demand for this cheap and trendy clothing, and while it sounds appealing, it actually isn't cheap at all. To make such cheap clothing, costs are often cut elsewhere, and this usually means the exploitation of workers. And fast fashion isn't just at the cost of workers. It also costs our planet a great deal. The excessive manufacturing of this clothing releases air and water pollutants. Instead of buying a piece of clothing because you love it, it's made with best quality or the best materials, people often buy fast fashion pieces because they're quick and respond to the trends that are so quickly changing. Fast fashion condones this idea of clothing being expendable, which creates a lot of waste. That's just a brief overview of fast fashion, but the concept has bothered me for quite some time. So what did I do about it? Through Closing Convo, I wanted not only to generate convos surrounding the true cost of fast fashion, but also what clothing can represent other than just dress. For my senior capstone project, I'm making my own clothing. All of the textiles used in this project are secondhand materials. I avoided using anything new, and that extends beyond just the textiles, including the tools that I used to construct the garments. I think the only thing that had no previous owner were my fabric scissors. Even my sewing machine was secondhand. I purchased it on eBay. As another component to this project, I was going to volunteer at House of Ruth's Be More Bags initiative. But given the pandemic, that didn't happen. An unforeseen challenge with this project was the strains put on all of us by the pandemic. But I kept thinking about how textiles mean more than just getting dressed in the morning. So I started making masks for healthcare workers instead, and that especially was a vehicle to use my newfound skill set for something of value. The whole point of slowing this process of fashion down for me was to truly think about, what did I want my clothes to look like? What did I want them to represent? So often clothing is used as a vehicle for expression, so I thought, why not make wearable art? Because I think clothing is wearable art. I thought deeply about how to use these makeshift fabrics for my garments. I spent a lot of time just thinking about how could I make these things work the way I wanted them to. And it was frustrating to not know exactly how to go about making what I knew in my head I wanted to make and translate that into an actual piece of clothing. As I was assembling textiles to create my pieces, my mindset was, I can make this work no matter what. But that wasn't the case. I didn't consider before how different fabrics and how they stretch and how they flow on the body. There was a lot of math involved, and that's definitely not a strong suit of mine. And even a slight mix in measurement can really throw off the whole garment, and I learned that the hard way. Another challenge was creating a workspace from an apartment that I share with a few furry friends, or having enough space to work, because a lot of the time it requires to stretch out these long pieces of fabric and cutting them and seeing where things go, and you need a lot of room to do that. The process of making my ideas come to life came through trial and error. In terms of methods and sources of discovery, I used YouTube and posts by seamstresses who are professionals in the field, and they were helpful, but only to a certain extent. Since I was the one designing my own garments, I couldn't find a pattern for a design I did myself. So I had to create my own patterns, which meant getting creative. I would use clothing that I already had that fit me well as a guideline on maybe how a shoulder would fit or how a waistband might. Before this project, I had very minimal sewing experience. For example, here is a shirt that I chopped from a dress in high school. I used white thread for this red shirt, and it's very obvious. But I look at this top fondly because I was able to improve and learn a new skill set. I had to start at the beginning and teach myself how to navigate this. The good news is I've graduated into making shirts like this. I made clothing/wearable art, and we just had a conversation.